To our first conversation, June 27th, 2025, the governments of Rwanda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, they signed a landmark U.S. brokered peace agreement in Washington, aiming to halt decades-long cycles of conflict that's displaced millions and claimed over 6 million lives. The deal commits both nations to withdraw Rwandan troops from eastern DRC within 90 days, end support for rebel groups like M23, establish joint security arrangements along their border to maintain peace, launch a regional economic framework to attract Western investment, especially in critical minerals like cobalt and coltan, central to global technology and energy markets there. Let's unpack all of this now. Let's talk to Abubakar Al-Hassan. He's a geopolitical and intelligence analyst joining us from our Abuja studio. Great to have you. How's it going, Abubakar? All right, so yes, Abubakar joins us from our Abuja studio. Great to have you, Abubakar. So let's kick off now. We see the accord there links peace to a regional mineral framework. You know, how can investor oversight and traceability systems, mitigate the historical resource curse there that's mostly prevalent in Africa? What are you seeing there?
Thank you very much, Ladi, once again for having me. First of all, let's look at mining. Mining is a very, very capital-intensive project, and ideally, production takes years. Mining companies cannot relocate if there is a conflict nearby or there is an unfavorable change in the political, regulatory, or social environment. This makes mining a very, very risky investment project. In fact, it's even more risky than most investment projects. So any U.S. company that wants to invest, any U.S. company that wants to invest, the question is, will this peace deal outlast the Trump administration? So any company that wants to invest in DRC following this peace deal, those are questions they want to be replying. So I have few considerations that I think U.S. companies will look at when they want to invest in U.S. mining companies will want to invest in when they want to look at this peace deal. Number one is risk appetite mismatch. Now, the tax of advancing U.S. mining interests in the DRC will fall to the private sector, which have low appetite for high-risk projects in high-risk environment. And the problem DRC has, apart from the conflict and instability, is that it has challenges that impede foreign investment, that impede investment, which include weak governance, road and rail and port infrastructure. I think this is where the Lobito project, which we are talking about, the regional economic integration, comes in. The Lobito project is a railway project that connects the cobalt and the cobalt from Zambia and DRC to the port of Angola and onwards to the Atlantic Ocean to the US and EU. Another position which the US companies will look at is the volatility of product prices. For example, if you are looking at the news recently, DRC have suspended export of cobalt because of oversupply in the international market. The price of cobalt is really low, and cobalt is essential to the US defense industry. So for US mining companies that want to invest in DRC, the question is, will they want to have new projects or invest in existing projects? Because if you invest in new projects, which means it will take a while for you to regain your capital cost. Whereas when you invest in existing projects, those projects, they've already made money from their capital cost. So these are the issues that US will be looking at, US companies will be looking at in terms of traceability of their investment as a result of this peace deal.
And talking about, the US, mining companies coming to do business there, critics argue that the US is negotiating access to minerals like cobalt and coltan. Could this deal turn into a new form of neo-colonial resource exploitation, echoing some of the past patterns we've seen?
So before I answer your question, let's take a look. Let's go back to how this peace deal came into place in the first place. In March 2025, amid escalating conflicts between the DRC and the Kenyan-backed M23 in the eastern region of DRC, the DRC government reached out to the US to propose a mineral for security deal because they saw that as a way of the US helping them to defeat the M23 rebels and to achieve peace in the country. They took a leaf from the Ukrainian mineral security deal and tried to leverage US interest in mineral security in mineral resources to help them defeat the Rwandan-backed M23s. Now the question is, the statement is DRC is very, very rich in mineral resources like cobalt, coltan, tin, and all that. For this peace deal, it will likely see the DRC foregoing revenues from mineral processing from US companies in exchange for military and financial assistance. So this will entail military assistance in terms of training, equipment, and other forms of financial assistance. This is in contrast to what we saw in the French-dominated colonies, whereby France controlled factors of production, distribution, and exchange.
All right, so U.S. interests and geopolitical implications now, let's look at that. In what ways does, tying the deal to U.S. mineral access, shift the balance of global influence away from China? China there, they have eyes, in Africa, at this point. How does that work?
Yeah. So a U.S. Involvement in DRC mineral sector, it will allow them to do two things. Number one, it will allow them to diversify their critical mineral supply chain and reduce independence from China, thereby strengthening their energy and defense industry. Number two, it will also fall into their strategy of reducing the economic dominance of China in Africa. But there have been reports that DRC granted, behind the scenes, DRC granted exclusive right to US for mineral resources. However, I don't see how this will be true because there are other foreign actors with property rights that are mobilizing for ongoing projects in the DRC. And by doing so, it will put further foreign investment in their mineral sectors in jeopardy by just removing it and just giving it to the US, giving exclusive right to the US. Moreover, it is unwise for the DRC to replace China's dominance with the US dominance. The prudent thing to do to mitigate risk is to diversify interest and investment in the country.
All right, so could the US's transactional approach, exchanging peace for resource concessions, could that undermine, its credibility as a neutral mediator here?
Daddy, this is a very, very important question. And I want to crave the indulgence of your viewers before I answer to go and look at my podcast, Geopolitics with Abudi, episode 2, which had to do with what Africa can expect from the Donald Trump presidency. Now, for US politicians, be it Republican and Democrat, they are predisposed to surrendering resources for the global dominance of the USA. But for Donald Trump, he doesn't see, he sees global dominance in monetary terms. That is why he has cut fundings to international institutions. And then we are now seeing that in Africa, US ambassadors in Africa will be judged by how many deals they can sign for the USA in what we term commercial diplomacy. So for the US, it's no longer interested in being a neutral mediator. The US is only a neutral mediator to the extent that its geopolitical interests and economic interests are protected.
So, definitely we've seen a very dramatic first half, of 2025. I know you're always keeping tabs with what's happening with geopolitics. What are you seeing for the second half of 2025? Is it going to be the same thing where we've been seeing so far when it comes to geopolitics?
Well, we are going to see, let me start with West Africa. As I always said, I've always maintained in my podcast, Africa is going to play a very, 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 very important role. So because we are now where there is a scramble for the resources of Africa, which is likely going to intensify as the US, China economic competition continue to intensify. We are going to see it trickle down to China. For example, this deal that we've seen that US have signed with DRC, the US have an interest in making sure that African countries do not fall into the geopolitical sphere of China, US, and Russia in order for it to gain geopolitical advantage over it. So that's what we are going to be seeing in the next 6 months. We are going to see more intensification of great power politics in Africa.
Right, and you did mention this, the scramble there for Africa. So talk to me, how can Africa, profit from all that's playing out, so far? So we don't see the resource curse, continuing at this point.
Well, to answer that, Africa needs to, we need to also move from, because when it comes to Africa, what they normally see is extraction, extraction, extraction. So for Africa to profit, we need to first of all try and start moving from production to packaging to make sure that we are not just we are improving our own value in the value chain, to make sure that we are also producing and also competing in the international market. That is the only way that our currency the standing of Africa will improve, and our currency, the value of our currency will also improve and give us a geopolitical strength in the global affairs.
Right, we do need that strength right now. But thank you so much for helping us unpack this. And also, Abubakar Al-Hassan is a geopolitical and intelligence analyst. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Ladi.